Here's a number that surprises almost everyone starting out. Roughly 80% of machine learning work is not building models. It's data, finding it, understanding it, cleaning it, and staring at it until it tells you something. That's not a warm-up before the real work. It is the real work. A brilliant algorithm trained on data nobody checked will confidently produce garbage, and it will do so with total conviction. So today, we get good at the part that actually decides whether your model is any good before it ever sees an algorithm. Welcome back. I'm Rohan Singh, this is CloudNimbus, and this is part 4, working with data using NumPy and pandas. And partway through today, the real project starts. By the end of this one, you'll know why NumPy is fast rather than just taking my word for it. You'll be comfortable moving around a pandas table, loading it, inspecting it, filtering it, grouping it. And you'll have met the real dataset this entire series is built around. 7,043 actual telecoms customers. And you're going to catch a genuine data problem hiding inside it with your own 2 eyes. Let's start with NumPy, because pandas is built on top of it, and everything downstream depends on this bit landing properly. Python already gives you lists. So why does machine learning use something else called an array? Try adding 2 lists together with a plus sign, and Python glues them end to end. A list of 4 numbers plus itself gives you a list of 8 numbers. That is almost never what you want when you're doing maths. A NumPy array looks similar, but behaves completely differently. Add 2 arrays together, and it adds them position by position, first plus first, second plus second. That's the arithmetic you learned in school, and it's the arithmetic every machine learning library assumes you mean. That leads straight to the second idea, vectorized maths. So you want to double every number in a list of 1,000,000 values. The list way is a loop. You visit every single element, one at a time, and multiply it. The NumPy way is one line. Multiply the whole array by 2. No loop in your code at all. You just say what you want done to the whole collection, and it happens. Every array also carries a shape, how many elements it holds along each dimension. A simple list of numbers has a shape like 4, meaning 4 items in a row. Real data is almost always 2-dimensional, rows and columns, exactly like a spreadsheet. A shape of 2 by 3 means 2 rows, 3 columns. You will check shape on nearly everything you load for the rest of your career, and today you start that habit. Now, here's the claim everyone makes about NumPy. It's fast. Let's not take that on faith. In the lab today, we time 2 approaches on 3 million numbers, using the exact same stopwatch for both, a plain Python loop that multiplies each number by 2, one at a time, against one line of vectorized NumPy doing the same job. The vectorized version comes out somewhere between 6 and 15 times faster on the same data on the same machine. That's not a rounding error. That's a different order of speed. Here's why. A Python list can hold anything, a number, a string, a list inside a list, so every single time you do x times 2, Python has to stop and ask, at that exact moment, what kind of thing is x, and what does multiply even mean for it? That question gets asked and answered millions of times over, one element at a time. A NumPy array already knows once that every element is the exact same fixed type of number. So it can hand the entire block of memory to precompiled, heavily optimized C code, and that code processes the whole array in one pass with none of that per-element bookkeeping. It's not doing something cleverer. It's doing dramatically less unnecessary work. And you'll feel this difference for real once your data reaches hundreds of thousands of rows, which, spoiler, is exactly where we're headed in about 90 seconds. NumPy gives you fast arrays of numbers. But real-world data is messier than that. Mixed types, column names, missing values. That's what pandas is for. It's built directly on top of NumPy, and its central object is called a data frame. The honest way to think about a data frame, it's a spreadsheet you can program. Rows named columns, and every column can hold a different type. Text in one, whole numbers in another, decimals in a third. You'll lean on 6 commands constantly. Read CSV loads a file straight into a data frame from a web address or your own disk. Head shows you the first few rows, so you're never staring blindly at a table you can't see. Shape tells you rows and columns instantly. Info gives you a report, column by column, of how many values are actually filled in and what type each column is. Describe gives you quick statistics, average, spread, minimum, maximum for every numeric column. And dtypes shows you every column's type on its own, no report needed. Beyond loading and inspecting, you'll select a column with square brackets around its name and select several at once with a list of names inside those brackets. You'll pull out rows by position or by a condition, filtering, which just means df followed by a true or false test in square brackets, keeping only the rows where that test passes. You'll count how often each category appears in a column with value counts, which is the fastest way to get your bearings on anything new. And you'll split a table into groups and compute a statistic separately within each group with groupby, one of the single most useful things you will ever learn in pandas, and we'll use it again and again from here on. Those are the moves. Now let's put them to work on something real. Right, this is the moment I want you to remember. Everything from here to the very last part of this series runs on one dataset. 7,043 real customers from an actual telecoms company, 21 columns of information about each one, and a question every subscription business on the planet loses sleep over. Which of these customers is about to leave? 26.5% of them already have. That's called churn, and predicting it, honestly and defensibly, is the project we are building toward. Not a toy dataset invented for a tutorial. A real business export with all the mess real business exports come with. Let's open the notebook. Same rules as always, nothing installed, everything runs in the browser, and this notebook downloads its own data, so all you need is what you learned in part 3. First, we load the file straight from its source with read CSV and call head on it. There it is, one row per customer, columns for contract type, monthly charges, tenure, internet service, and right at the end whether they churned. Shape confirms it, 7,043 rows, 21 columns. Now the important one. Info, and I want you to actually read this output, not skim it. It lists every column, how many non-missing values it has, and its dtype, its data type. Walk down that list. Gender, text. Contract, text. Senior citizen, a whole number. Monthly charges, a decimal number. That all looks exactly as it should. Now find total charges. Read its dtype. It's text, not a number, text. Depending on your pandas version, it prints as object or SDR, but both mean the same thing. Pandas is storing every single value in that column the same way it stores the word month to month. A column that is quite obviously a running total of money charged, sitting right next to monthly charges, which is a proper number column. Here's the tell you should learn to spot on site. Call describe, which only reports on columns pandas currently treats as numeric. Monthly charges is in that table. Total charges isn't there at all. If a column you'd expect to be numeric goes missing from describe, that's not a coincidence. That's a column quietly telling you it isn't what it looks like. So, diagnosis. Something in that column isn't a valid number. Let's find out exactly what, and exactly how much of it. We ask pandas to try converting the whole column to numbers with to numeric, and we pass errors equals coerce. That means, if a value can't become a number, don't crash, replace it with nar_n, pandas' marker for missing data, and keep going. 11 rows fail to convert. Just 11 out of 7,043. Let's actually look at them. Look closely at total charges for those 11 rows. It isn't empty. It contains a single space character, one blank keystroke, sitting where a number should be. To a human eye scanning a spreadsheet that looks like nothing at all. To a computer expecting a number, it is absolutely not nothing. It's an invalid value that breaks the entire column's type. Now look at the column next to it. Tenure for all 11 of those customers is 0. That's not a coincidence, and that's the whole lesson today. Every single one of those 11 customers is brand new, signed up so recently they haven't completed a full billing cycle yet. Whoever built the system that exports this file had no total to put in that cell for a customer who's never been billed, so a blank space went in instead of a proper 0. Nobody was careless. A perfectly reasonable business process, just never anticipated a strict data type checker reading that column one day. This is not a bug planted for a tutorial. This is the actual, unedited state of this file, and it is one of the most common shapes a dirty real-world column takes. The data is showing you the business. So, the fix. 2 steps. First, actually convert the column this time, not a disposable copy. Assign the results straight back onto the total charges column. Second, decide what those 11 resulting NAR-NS should become. Dropping those 11 rows would throw away a real customer's gender, contract, every other column, over one broken cell in a table of 7,000. And since we already know exactly why they're blank, 0 completed billing cycles, filling them with 0 is the honest, defensible choice. It says this customer has been charged nothing in total so far, and that happens to be true. Total charges is now a genuine numeric column, exactly like monthly charges. And here's the point I want to land before we move on. One column of dirty text, unnoticed, is enough to silently break an entire model later, a crash at best, a wrong answer with total confidence at worst. Learning to catch this in under 2 minutes is one of the most valuable skills in this entire series. 4 charts, each answering a different question. First, churn rate by contract type. Does the kind of contract someone's on relate to whether they leave? Second, the distribution of tenure. A histogram shows you how long customers typically stick around, mostly brand new, mostly long-standing, or a genuine mix of both. Third, monthly charges, split by whether someone churned or stayed. Are the customers who leave paying more per month or less? And fourth, a correlation heat map across the numeric columns, which pairs of numbers move together, which move in opposite directions, and which have no relationship at all. Now the part I actually want you to remember. Look at that first chart again. Month-to-month customers churn at 42.7%. 1-year contracts, 11.3%. 2-year contracts, 2.8%. Month-to-month customers churn roughly 15 times more often than 2-year customers. 15 times. Keep going. Fiber optic internet customers churn at 41.9% against 19% for DSL. Customers with no tech support churn at 41.6% against 15.2% for customers who have it. Customers paying by electronic check churn at 45.3%, the highest of any payment method in the file. And churned customers had stuck around for 18 months on average, against 37.6 months for customers who stayed, over twice as long. None of that required a model, not one line of machine learning. You already have a retention strategy sitting in front of you in 4 numbers. Watch month-to-month customers closest, watch fiber customers closest, get people onto tech support, and be careful with electronic check payers. A model later will sharpen this. It will not invent it. The insight was already in the data. You just had to ask it the right 4 questions. That's genuinely the underrated skill in this whole field. Executives don't get excited about an algorithm's internal maths. They get excited about a sentence like month-to-month customers churn 15 times more than 2-year customers, because that sentence tells them exactly where to spend a retention budget on Monday morning. You can say that sentence out loud right now, and you've barely opened a modeling library yet. So, what do you own now? A real reason NumPy is fast, not just an assertion. Fluency moving around a pandas table, load, inspect, filter, group. A diagnosis cause fix routine for dirty data that you will use on every dataset you ever touch. And the actual Capstone dataset, cleaned, with 4 business insights you produced yourself. Homework: 1. Group by payment method and find the churn rate for each one. The answer's in the notebook, but work it out first. 2. Group by tech support and compare churn for customers with it against customers without. 3. Post your payment method answer in the comments. Notebooks linked below. Clean dataset included. Ready for part 5. Part 5 is where this stops being spreadsheets and starts being learning. We build a model's training loop from scratch, by hand, so you can watch it actually learn. And then we ask an uncomfortable question about accuracy that most courses never bother to ask. Subscribe so it finds you. And the full guided course with graded exercises is on Udemy through CloudNimbus, linked below. You cleaned a real business dataset today and found a fault most people would have missed. I'm Rohan Singh, this has been CloudNimbus, and I'll see you in part 5.